Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. Many of us are concerned about climate change, about global warming, about whether it's real or not real, if there's misunderstandings, what the frame of reference is, what the truth is, and what the story is about it. And I have to tell you that today we have a tiger by the tail. Christopher Walter Monckton, 3rd Viscount Monckton of Brenchley, a British politician, journalist, and formerly a member of the Conservative Party. He has also been a deputy leader of the UK Independence Party since June 2010. He has served in a Conservative central office and worked for the Margaret Thatcher's No. 10 policy unit during the 1980s. He's also worked for The Universe, the Sunday Telegraph, Today, and the Evening Standard newspapers. He became known in the 1990s for his invention of the Eternity Puzzle, a mathematical puzzle for which he offered a prize of £1 million to the person who could solve it within 4 years. He has come to the public attention in the UK and elsewhere for his outspoken skepticism about anthropogenic global warming. He is also an advisor to the Science and Public Policy Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Lord Christopher Monckton. Good evening to Copenhagen.
And good evening to you.
You have so much energy. I want to know where you get all that energy from. I want to take whatever you're taking.
Well, it's a daily bottle of champagne.
Is that right?
I wish.
How are you doing?
In fine fettle.
Well, fine settle. I'm going to have to come to Britain and learn all the proper language. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure.
It wasn't until I actually was willing to look into climate and weather did I realize the level at which I have been hypnotized as a human being and about global warming. I didn't realize how hypnotized I was until I did interviews before today. So I want you to know I am newly awakened in terms of the evolution of the industry, the IPCC, climate and weather science, and I'm very dedicated to distilling a frame of reference to the public that is so clear that people can separate the wheat from the chaff, because I really think that there is a global collusion to obstruct people's basic ability from seeing clearly.
Well, I think that's quite right. What's happened is that the governing class is worldwide effectively conspiring against the governed. It's decided that this global warming scare, which has been spun up and hyped up beyond all reason in just about all of the world's governments and all of the world's scientific institutions, is purely designed to extend the powers and the taxation and the wealth and the reach of government. And that's what's being attempted here in Copenhagen. What they're trying to do is set up a world government.
That's actually why I've invited you on. There's several questions I want to ask you. I've listened to a lot of your interviews that are online and on YouTube. I've gone to the Science and Public Policy site. I've read you're the chief policy advisor there. I would like to ask you questions that the public won't ask you to sort out some of people's lack of receptivity, first to hearing from you, and second, to hearing the frame of reference that you're articulating. So the first thing I'd like to do to open the field so you can be better received. Now, first of all, I realize that you're very controversial. I've been controversial my whole life, so I relate. But you're controversial in a public figure kind of way. So recognizing that not only, you're controversial, part of it is the minefield you're stepping into, but the other part of it is you appear to have blown out of nowhere, and the public doesn't know who you are, where you came from. And even though you were a special advisor to Margaret Thatcher as the UK Prime Minister from 1982 to 1986, to the public who has no context for you, it looks like you blew out of nowhere in this climate thing. So maybe there's something you can say to the public to be able to receive you as not just like somebody that blew in out of nowhere. That maybe you can say something to that.
Well, of course I can. What happened was I fell ill And for 25 years, I was more or less out of action. And then I cured myself last year with a very interesting new use for a pre-existing medication. And we can now cure, so it seems, a very wide range of infections, quite painlessly and very cheaply and very quickly. And so I suddenly, having made myself better, decided that I needed to get back into action again. And as it happens, just about that time, there was a merchant bank in the City of London, a small boutique finance house, whose chief executive had begun to smell a rat, rather as you've just begun to do, on the climate, and had thought that the propaganda shrieks from the people spinning this up were just a little bit too shrilled. So he said, look, our analysts don't know what to make of this. I've consulted people on both sides, and there seems to be a lot of disagreement. Can you try to sort it out? So I had a look, having previously advised Margaret Thatcher, 25 years previously, that this might turn out to be a problem, and I thought it might still turn out to be a problem. But I had a look, and I found, much to my amazement, that although the science was entirely clear that there was no longer a problem, we'd done enough science to know that adding CO2 to the atmosphere is pretty much harmless, an enormous industry had been created around pretending that it is harmful. And this industry was essentially committing what looked to me very much like scientific fraud, and indeed gaining a financial advantage by that fraud. And so I put in a 40-page report to the finance house saying, well, as best I can see it, this is no longer a problem, but there is this strange propensity on the part of the scientific community with the active support of governments, the media, school teachers and academia to get together and pretend that there is a problem because they're all getting rich out of it. So I sent this to him, and he said, of course, I'm not a scientist, he said. I read what you say, and I have also spoken to the other side in the case, but all they gave me was lectures about how I had to believe it because there was a consensus. What you have told me is that there isn't a consensus. You've produced evidence from the scientific literature of widespread disagreement on all the main aspects of climate science. And you have done it in such a way that you haven't preached at all. You've just said this paper says this, that paper says that. You've given the facts. So I gave this guy the facts, and he was fascinated. So he sent it to the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, who at once got in touch and said, could I translate it into English, which I did. And I did a 2,500-word article in the Sunday Telegraph, which was then posted up on the Telegraph's website on the day of publication. Within 2 hours, it had received 127,000 hits on the website, and the website couldn't take the load, and it crashed. And that's the first and only time that the Sunday Telegraph's website, this is the website of a major national newspaper, has ever crashed. They've never had a response to any article before or since that was as big as they got.
Are you crashing? Speaking of crashing, are you crashing the climate party in Copenhagen?
Oh, I'm here now. I'm in Copenhagen.
Some people may think you're crashing a celebration.
Well, I'm making a terrific nuisance of myself. I mean, I've been in the main conference hall, going up and down, talking to delegates, talking to campaigners, talking to kids who've been relentlessly propagandized by their wretched teachers. It's just like the Hitler Youth. I mean, last time Copenhagen had this amount of propaganda posted up and pasted up in every public square and on every public building was when the Nazis occupied this country.
Aren't you scared? Aren't you concerned? Aren't you concerned for your life?
No, because I really don't sort of go that far with conspiracy theories.
No, but I mean, you're really
the danger to the entire project, if they were now to kill me, would be enormous. Because even if I die of a cold, let's say, there'll be enormous suspicion that somebody's poisoned me in order to keep this fraud going. There's now so much concern among the public that they're not being told the truth by the media. They're having to get it on the internet. They want to know about the ClimateGate emails, which reveal how nasty this clique of scientists that's been driving the global warming scare is. They have to go to the internet because the major newspapers don't tell them. If in that context I were even to fall under a bus, people would be suspicious.
But,
I don't think, I think if anything, the other side would probably rather keep me alive and making a noise rather than make me a martyr by allowing me to die of anything.
I hear you. Well, let me just say this to you. One of the scariest things to me is that I started to do several shows on it because I really wanted to learn. I just was open. I just said, you know what? I really don't know about